So, did you go back to the States after you did your time with the Shipibo? Is that how you say it, Shipibo?
Well, that was just recent. What had originally brought me down here was March, like a 2 week retreat. And we did like, I don't even know, like 8 or 10 ceremonies. It was wild. And then right before I came down here, one of my dear friends, he's a doctor in New York who offers Bufo. And I tell you what, man, like that couple ceremonies I did were super life changing and insightful. It's just interesting, man. You know, the world of plant medicine and all these things that have been hidden and kept from us for so long. You know, just like the powerful healing benefits. You know, obviously, big pharma's a pretty evil corporation as it is, but it's just pretty remarkable, man. I've always kind of been in search of healing, and you know how it is when you've got a client and you want to figure out how to fix them, even if it's deemed impossible by, mainstream science. You know what I mean? You just, you want to do whatever you can for people. So yeah, this last week in the Shapiba it was wild because completely dark. Most ceremonies have light or fire or whatever, and it just makes you go in and kind of analyze some thought processes and past situations like a magnifying glass, like times 100, so you can kind of come to peace. And it's pretty intense sometimes because ayahuasca isn't like fun to taste. You know what
Yeah,
I
I've
mean?
heard.
But what's interesting, obviously, though, is the rules, like not making love for many days beforehand, like super strict diets, the no caffeine. So when you do drink the medicine, like some of the experiences I've seen, oh man, it's it's almost hard to explain. But once they say you're in the flow, you close your eyes, you open your eyes, and all of a sudden, like everyone looks different because you don't see any ego. You see almost like the higher self. So it's like I'm looking around like I'm at in like royalty all of a sudden. Like it's a trip, man. And gosh, one time I heard like 10 different languages coming out of the speaker, even though he was speaking one, like having psychic surgeries, like just wild, man. But, you know, what it does, obviously, for, some people, I was fortunate never really to be into drugs or anything, but a lot of people with addictions are able to really get over it, really, really quickly. I mean, I love my red limes and love my
Yeah.
caffeine, obviously, you know what I mean? And, when you're trying to do as much as you can for clients in the amount of time you're allotted, I always wanted to be on my A game anyway. And so that way it almost became hard to function, without having that caffeine addiction or whatever. So the fact that I could even go a week without, and find other ways to kind of fill those gaps in a more healthy manner for your body, super beneficial. You know what I mean? And the detoxification, holy crap. Uh, Maria's like shivering under a bunch of layers of blankets, and I'm like soaking wet like I just got out of a swimming pool. I, I always ask grandma for like an easy night. I don't really like to purge. But man, it was wild. You probably read my post. Net and Sui, this shaman, was telling us stories. I mean, his tribe's been there for 4,000 years. Like think of those bloodlines, and these people are bred for this work, and the diets that they're under, and being in complete isolation for many months. Uh, it's just kind of remarkable how almost pure these people are, where this is just what they study. It was like being among like a scientist and like obviously an indigenous person, uh, and like I don't even know how to explain like the knowledge he possessed, and he gets this information in his dreams.
That is
It's like, like, talk about being like one with nature, you know what I mean? Like the plants speak to him, and it was like, wow, man, okay, you guys are on a level now I get, like, you
but
know, so
people in our society, and probably myself included. I mean, I've never done any of those ceremonies, but I've been in a massage school where people have done that and they talk about it. So I've been exposed on a very, very superficial scale. But
yeah,
people in our society, I don't know that they even A, know about it, and then B, I don't know
no,
if they
definitely not.
understand the benefits that can come from something like that.
Oh, you know what? I mean, I've always been super, I guess one of my shamans said hyper empath, where I was super sensitive, and obviously later that became a gift where I could just tap in. This gentleman I sat with over the weekend's like a legend down here. You saw him sitting in the chair in one of my photos, Jaume. He went like 15 years every week straight. Like he was telling me a story of having like a lump in his throat. Uh, and his wife forced him to go to the doctor, and the doctor wasn't there, but a woman mopping the floor said it looked like viral. So he went home, and she's like, "What the doctor says?" He's like, "They said it looked viral." She's like, "Well, we're not going to ceremony." He's like, "Well, what difference does it make if I sit home with this lump or go to ceremony with this lump?" So he went, and by the end of the night, it's totally gone, disappeared. You know, so it's the power behind the medicine where, you know, they call it grandmother, because I think grandfather's a boga, totally different plant, but uh, it's interesting because a lot of times it's like a lifetime of pain, like boom, gone. Where you just come to peace, you come to terms, you know, and sometimes you're obviously uplifted, and you get your power back. Where, man, I swear the one night I could lift a car, whatever, you know, spirit kind of came in. I mean, the first ceremony I went to with the indigenous tribes was the Huni Queen up in LA. Oh my gosh. You know, and I'd been super depressed for many months from just moving and just overworking myself, and relationships at the time. It's just, you know, ridiculous. And I tell you what, man, I went there. It's just like a major reset almost. But I tell you that, you know, once that medicine soaks in the right way and you get that DMT hit, all of a sudden, like, you're not in the same place you were before, but the perspective it shows you, uh, and, you know, they say it can heal depression, which I tell you what, it's done wonders for me. Um, but then the other thing is obviously trying to integrate it in all this stuff that you've learned and all this healing you've done, and you're in nature and you don't feel stress, compared to, you know, getting up in the morning and going to the stoplight and someone's like smashing on the horn if you don't floor it when it turns green, and you can't even get to the gym before you're pissed off, like, because 10 people are, you know, in LA, the traffic. So it's like, it's, that's the tough part I always had, is trying to like be in such an urban area, being so hypersensitive to energy around me, and trying to remain grounded, you know, and obviously, you know, not having to smoke weed or something to just be like, holy crap, you know what I mean? I need a mountain, I need a stream, I need some grass, I need to get the hell out of here. You know, it's like, you know, I grew up in Northeast Pennsylvania, so it's kind of crazy between that and obviously this year with everything that's happened, like how intense people are.
Oh yeah. Oh,
How
without a
is it where
doubt.
you are?
It's equally as intense because I'm here in DC, and so
Oh my gosh.
you've got everything that you guys got going on, plus you have all the political climate that's going on, and it's such a toxic area. It really is. Like the
You
energy is
know what,
so bad.
dude? And that's another thing that's kind of a trip, like how I came back here the second week. I was farting around on gosh, what was it? Bumble or some shit. And you know, that's how I met Maria down here. So we went out and spent the whole weekend together, and then I get back to LA and my roommate say, "Hey, uh, I want to end the lease." He met a girl, you know, wanted to move in with her. I'm like, "Well, you want me to move in a pandemic, bro?" So like, oh, dude, I mean, obviously you couldn't take anything to Goodwill, so I could tell you stories that'll crack you up about just like forcing people to take extra stuff with them if they bought something from me, for free. I'm like, please take this.
Please take. I remember for a
Like,
while
oh
you
my
were.
gosh, like stressing who's going to get my plants and take care of them. And luckily someone moved in next door and I pretty much gave them my entire house with half the furniture so I could downsize enough. And that's the other thing. It's just like, you can earn some great money when you hustle, but then you realize how much it costs you. And, I work with my fingertips or whatever, so it's like, whoa, you mean like my car payment would be a penthouse apartment overlooking Copacabana Beach here? You know what I mean? And you start like taking a lot of perspective about the way we live in America. I mean, dude, they don't even sell American brand candy, food down here. I mean, I haven't seen it. It's like, oh shit. So you mean that's like technically not legal here? It's wild, man. Like what we get used to consuming in America to keep us addicted.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt. And I remember when you were moving, you were posting things online like, hey, like just come take it. It was some of these things were expensive too. Like I think
Oh,
didn't you
dude.
didn't you end up selling your car too, or both of them?
I got rid of my Ducati, like took a loss on that. I just bought the damn thing, but I'm like, I and I tell you what, I mean, Newsom still has it half shut down. I couldn't believe it. Like if I would have stayed, and you're not allowed to work, and you got 4,500 a month rent, and you're like, what's that in 6 months? Like 30 G's. Like yeah, 1 second, let me, what?
Deuces.
So I'm kind of fortunate that Jay wanted to move out. We ended up closing it early, and we paid ahead the deposit or whatever, so they kept it. And I sold my Chevelle, and that's basically what I've been living off of. I'm like, well, shit, I'll just come down here, ride out the storm. And when I left, I missed my flight, stayed extra time to chill with Maria. And when I left, I went up to uh, LA to just, like I said, downsize, get rid of whatever I could. And we just talk, and it ended up allowing us online to do a what do they call them? Stable union agreement.
Mm.
It's like basically one step below marriage. So she's like, "Hey, come down here, chill. Let's do yoga on the beach." And I'm like, "That sounds cool. And she lives beachfront. The building name is California on it, which is a trip. I'm like, all right, this is kind of a sign. You know what I mean? Like, and I don't know how I would have survived up there, man, because the riots went right down Santa Monica Boulevard next to my place.
Really?
Like, what am I going to do? Like, let someone pick on someone? You know what I mean? I probably totally would have had 5 people beat me up with baseball bats and kill me. Like, I joke, but I'm like, it's hard enough. It's been hard enough being here, seeing what's happening up there. And like, okay, I'm out of the country. No need to get pissed. But even so, man, it's been kind of crazy, especially I'm ready for the elections to be over and
Oh
everyone to
God.
get on with their lives, man. It's just sad what they're willing to do to the country. And I'm fortunate I didn't have a separate studio or gym like I normally do. And they're still fighting these people in court, not letting people work out. It's crazy.
Oh, it's insane. I mean, even in Jersey, there's been a gym down there that's just
Yeah,
they've been. I don't know if you followed that, but they've been.
catalysts. Like,
Yeah,
dude, now they're seizing his assets and shit. I'm like, wow, that's not
it's
fair.
oh, it's nuts. It's nuts.
And I didn't get any help from the government. I didn't friggin' I mean, I haven't qualified for shit. Like $1,200 is supposed to get us like what? Like that didn't even cover my car payment, man, like so yeah, it's been a wild year, and I'm just kind of I've been through it once or twice when I made some bad business decisions and had to start completely over. So I've been through it before. But for a lot of people going through like major losses with their business and things, to me, I just kind of looked at it like, and the funny thing was, even before Newsom shut everything down, and I guess back to that with Maria, um, 5 days after we, technically did the stable union online, they changed the law again.
Really?
So I got through the lockdown, and it hasn't been counting my whatever 90 days or 180 days I'm allowed to be here. I got through. So I was able to kind of chill here the last 6 months, and I've been doing a lot of different studying and obviously, trying everything I can to expand, my healing work. And it's been kind of a trip, man. I've been so thankful because, you know, what, 40 million small businesses or something crazy, 40 million people out of work and shit.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many industries that have gotten trashed, like the hotel and leisure industries. I mean, they're just trash. The airlines trash. Um, the interesting thing about what you do is that you're able to travel. And you're not, like you said, you're not tied down. And I understand that there's
Yeah,
definitely there's
I'm.
apprehension in
Mhm.
people wanting to sit on a table and get treated during a pandemic and stuff like that. But
Yep.
um, there's definitely a group of people that are willing to do that. And I'm
Yeah, man. It's interesting because aside from sweating on people every so often, I've had people come in with the flu or whatever, and obviously I'd never work if I felt like crap or had the flu or anything. But it's funny, man. It was like 8 years ago or 6 years ago, I was in New York when they had that vortex, like super cold weather. And I was staying with Dave Palumbo, and I was out shoveling his driveway. And I came in, and I tell you what, I was sweating through multiple comforters and multiple hoodies every night. And in 10 days, I lost like 28 pounds. And I was calling my clients, say, hey, yo, I feel like crap. I think I've got something. They're like, all right, cool. See you soon. They're like, they've been waiting like 6 months or like a year to work with me. So they're like, whatever. Like, dude, every 20 minutes, I was like losing my guts in the bathroom. Like, I'll be right back. Like, no big deal. Like, I don't know how I made it through. I remember being at Dominic Cardone's nutrition center in Brooklyn, and they were laughing because at the end of the day, like I couldn't open the Gatorade to drink it. Like I couldn't drink milk, because of the phlegm and all that. Like it was bad. And then finally, I was up in Long Island at Derlin Castro's office, which is a full-on medical center, and he saw me cough up blood because. I mean, dude, I'm like a workhorse. I was a
You're a
moron.
workhorse.
People are like, how did you get to where you are? I'm like, it'd kill you. Please don't try. Like, oops, I'll just have a fourth red line because it won't kill me or give me a stroke. Like, dude, I'm so lucky. I got, high tolerances for working 12, 14-hour days, just like stupid shit, and obviously I'm smarter now and it laid the groundwork for my strength and honing my skill set and stuff. But anyway, his doctor gave me a Z pack, and I remember landing in LA and my wife picked me up. She's like, oh my gosh, because I could pull my pants out like 6 inches. I lost so much weight. I looked like I was dying. And that's when I was working in Beverly Hills at Dr. Joshin's. And one of my chiros like lifted the folder and he's like, it was Lionel Richie. So he comes out and like, I was just like so exhausted, just dead. Like Triple H canceled. That's why I was able to come back because I was supposed to work with him that night, but his airplane got stuck in Wisconsin or something because of a snowstorm. So I'm like, I'm bouncing home. I'm like, I had nothing clever to say to him. I'm just like, don't go to New York. It's cold. And he kind of looks at me and he smiles and I, explain to him what happened. And, then on the ride home, I'm thinking all these one-liners like, hello, like, like, damn it, you
Damn
know,
it.
ah, like, is anyone home? But, so, it's been cool. I've had some crazy experiences, but, getting into the plant medicine, when was it? My first experience, I don't even know how. No, it came about with the shaman that I had met and spoken to and was really tapped in. So I did, I think, golden teacher mushrooms one night. And I tell you what, man, I like went through different dimensions, and was seeing sacred geometry. And I remember at the end of the night, and again, like you're deep in your thoughts, like just fixing things, you know what I mean? And coming to peace with things. And I remember going outside and I could see the Earth's energy grid. Like literally every star was connected. Like it like hovered just above the planet. And I was sitting there like shaking my head, like, because you can see energy typically we can't as humans. You know what I mean? So when people move, I could see tracers, I could see their shadows, I could see, you know, it was just wild, man. Um, but that's when really it started to also benefit, you know, a lot of my tissue work too, because you're always trying to learn, how can I, you know, efficiently release this insane pain without hurting myself, without hurting the client, you know. And obviously with my fingertips and stuff, you know, it's kind of a ridiculous technique sometimes when you do long days and your fingers are blistered. But it's been really interesting working and seeing what all these other shamans and healers and indigenous do. You know, it's pretty wild, especially when they're calling in spirits, and all of a sudden, like, you're looking out your third eye, and like the space in the middle of the floor where there's 20 feet of nothing all of a sudden has things you can see, you know, moving and dancing, and you're like, whoa, what? You know what I mean? So that's when you're like, I always knew this was here. We just couldn't see it before, you
So
know. And man,
what do you you know, obviously I'm a veteran, and a lot of the veteran community suffers from PTSD, right? It's not a secret.
oh my gosh, yeah.
What do you think could be the benefit of somebody who, you know, is experiencing intense PTSD to maybe try or go down that path? Is that something
I'll
that
tell you
you?
what, man, I experienced that just through the stress I went through earlier this year, not really knowing what I was going to do, how long LA was going to be locked down. Like, hey, you're not allowed to earn your own living anymore. Like, what? I didn't see that coming. Like, boom! I have no idea how that's legal, and I hope Newsom gets sued. And you know, like I said, I'm fortunate I could just kind of put my feet up on the beach, and like I had to learn how to relax because you're so on edge from morning, noon, and night in places like LA, New York. You're just like, oh shit. You realize like you don't know how to relax. You know what I mean? So I was able to really, you know, do things for myself and heal my fingers from all the massive amount of work I did over the years, and start, you know, building a clientele down here. But yeah, I'm looking forward to coming back. That's for sure. But anyway, back to the PTSD, man. Uh, absolutely. Um, when you're under severe stress, it kind of just shuts everything down. You just feel like a dead person, but you're still alive. You know what I mean? And I'm named after my father's best friend who passed away in Vietnam with Purple Hearts and all that stuff. Like my grandfather was a sheriff, you know, state trooper for 50 years in Pennsylvania, and a Marine. Like, dude, I have no idea. Like now I understand as an adult why he went fishing by himself all the time. And he was a caretaker of a lake, you know. And
Right.
uh, oh my God, I don't know how you could get by without going to stuff like this, because you come to terms. And a lot of people, and men especially, are afraid to be emotional and are afraid to get it out and realize, like, you know, you're allowed to heal from this. You know, you wake up with 1,000 candles, and little by little your best friend, you know, you wake up, you stealing your baseball cards and whatever your parents fight or whatever, little by little those candles get blown out, and then you're in survival mode for who knows how many years of your life, let alone watching your friends pass away, you know, in another country for some bullshit reason that we're paying taxes for. You know what I mean? It's like, this doesn't make fucking sense. And that's why I swear a lot of this stuff has been legal for so long, because it allows you to uncondition yourself from what everyone's conditioned to our entire lives, of what we watch, what we see. You know, a lot of religions, gosh, if you don't follow what they say, you're kicked out of the community. Like, wow. Just to wake up and be able to think for yourself is a rare trait, it seems, nowadays.
So do you think every ceremony is almost like its own individual awakening?
Oh, one of my teachers used to say, if you haven't died a dozen times in a night, you didn't have a good night. It's like ego death,
Wow.
and gosh, I tried the Terrence McKenna dose and I put a funny story up. It wasn't real funny, but I was by myself, which was so stupid, and did a ton of mushrooms once. And I tell you what, at one point I just accepted my death. I almost called my parents. Luckily I didn't. Holy shit, I'm such an idiot. But I was just gonna say goodbye. Like, you can't mess around. But as far as using it as medicinal purposes, and again, I never did this crap growing up. I was like, I never smoked weed until I was 27. And I was like, this is what this does? Holy shit. You know what I mean? Like, I was so stressed out of my mind, all of a sudden I slept like a baby. But yeah, I think for veterans especially, man, it's worth it. Not only for detoxification purposes, because you know as well as I do, if you're stressed out, typically you're trying to numb yourself with something. There's no judgment there. Shit, it can be food, it can be anything,
Yep.
let alone alcohol, and all of a sudden marijuana becoming essential everywhere overnight, and it's just like, wow, you know, uh, and then you meet these indigenous people and you're like, whoa, that's a whole different level of human being with, how just in tune they are. And the tobacco cleanses and the Cambo that'll up your immunity 300 to 400% for 6 months. Like just some of the stuff they do, they find healing through plants. And
And
it's such,
why do you think it's so negatively looked at here in the States? I mean, I don't think ayahuasca is legal. I know people do it, but
they get by you calling it a church, apparently, I think, and I'm not sure the bylaws. I know a place in Orlando of a documentary I was watching, that's what they were trying to get by with, you know what I mean?
gotcha. Sort of
Uh,
like peyote for Native Americans and
yeah, so in a way, I don't really think it is illegal necessarily, but it's not like a public thing either.
yeah.
Um, but no, the people that I know that do it are doctors or psychiatrists or psychotherapists of 40 years. Um, Talk about like self introspection. And that's why a lot of people are like, oh, I'd be afraid to do that. Like, yeah, look yourself in the fucking mirror out of 100 times magnifying glass or mistakes you've made, your shadows and different scenarios, or you know uh, your childhood vomiting out, or whatever it might be. Especially hearing other people's experiences is pretty wild. I tell you, the visuals I've seen when the medicine hits just right just blew my mind, where you can almost see the shaman and the Indian healing people and pulling crap out of them. You're like, whoa. It's just man, it's an experience that I think is pretty necessary. um and I've been through crazy situational stress 10 years ago before I'd even trademarked Bluff Technique. My surgery without the knife and all that stuff, where, man, they put me on a bunch of pharmaceuticals. I thought I was mentally retarded. I seriously didn't even know how to drive a car, and you're like, it was just situational stress. But it's just like a membership to the club. I'm like, wow, I'm so glad I saw that quickly, because, you get trapped on these pharmaceuticals, and not that I'm sure some of them are beneficial, maybe, I don't know, but my experience was horrific with them. So to be able to, you know, remove stress, anxiety, certain addictions with different things, and come to peace, you know, and that could be just people smoking cigarettes, but that doesn't mean you'll spend 20 grand a year and you're married to the damn things and all the health risks that come of it. And it's crazy. Tobacco in these ceremonies is sacred. So he was smoking out of a pipe, raw, pure organic tobacco, but they don't inhale,
Hmm.
because he says no, that's where addiction comes. It's like, wow, talk about restraint.
That's
You know what I
interesting.
mean? But that doesn't mean he doesn't get crazy buzz from the tobacco, though.
Right.
It's just like straight up control. Like, Americans don't have control.
No,
Oh my
everything is
God,
excess. Everything is excess.
everything. And so that's why, I'm trying to decide, because it's like 5-to-1 exchange rate. It's like, all right, do I work a few times a year in America and live here, or live up there and travel here, So I'm just kind of taking it easy, and we'll see after this next little visit to my clients. And that's the cool thing with how many people are like, oh my God, thank God, please, can I have a treatment? Uh, Following all the guidelines and wearing masks. And I was always super critical of cleanliness anyway, so it's not like it changes anything other than wearing these damn masks, whatever, for people's safety and comfort. It's interesting, man, what, and this death rate's like a decimal point away from the typical flu season, from what I understand. It's just kind of crazy how everyone's really been living in fear. And I'm not even visiting my parents for Christmas because of it. It's like, all right, I get it,
Yeah, it's the fear mongering. But I want to transition into the work, because you're starting to touch on it, and I think there's a lot of people, including myself, who have followed you for a number of years. And when I was on the table with you, you would give me some insight as to how everything got started.
Yeah.
But I mean, you're somebody who is, like you said earlier, very driven. I mean, even
Yeah.
just when you talked, at least when I was on the table with you, you talk like, all right, this guy's intense. He's passionate about what he does
Yeah.
on a level that other people don't have in whatever respective industry they're in. So how did you
Yeah.
get started, and how did you go about creating your own technique? I mean, that's what I find really intriguing.
You know, gosh, man, I originally graduated in 2000, went out to Utah, and they had an incredible physical therapy program that I, thought I was going to be in. And after my first year or second year, I think I went to Utah College of Massage Therapy, figuring like, shit, if I become a doctor, I might as well work at a ski resort, in between, start learning anatomy, whatever. And once I got done with school, I was like, there's no way in hell I'm working at a spa or salon, Or I was never necessarily crazy about whatever, quote unquote, touching people or anything, you know what I mean? Uh, I was personal training. Well, gosh, no, I wasn't even training yet. I was working at 24-hour fitness, and I was killing it in sales.
That's right.
And
I
they had
remember you
opened
telling
up a
me.
pre-sale trailer. So I was like breaking out 400 or 500 clubs nationwide. I was like breaking company records, like selling gym memberships. Like, dude, I grew up doing hard labor asphalt work. Like, give me a break. I'd be messing with my coworkers, like, yo, I'm gonna give this little old lady a hug. Watch, gonna get her, Key Fit Plus with 20 sessions of training, and I'd be over there hugging her and her husband, like looking over my shoulder, just messing with them. And
That's
I
awesome.
learned sales. And funny enough, I think before I could legally drink, I became general manager of one of the brand new clubs. So after I got a massage therapy school, I was like, that facade of I'm a big shot wearing, crisp iron shirts and all this stuff as a general manager. But then I divided like the crazy amount of hours I'd work in a day by my paycheck, and I'm like, shit, it's like less than $5 an hour. I'm like, this ain't working. I got a fancy name badge, but I'm miserable. And I love the gym industry, and that's when my buddy and I opened up a private training center, and that's when I got into the tissue work. And my roommates was Kenny Milne. He was a national bodybuilder, probably could have been pro. That I was always working on kind of anyway. But I tell you, man, it's when I started. I think I met a theta healer and then an angelic healer, and had some crazy experiences with them. And I was working just 12-hour days, where it was just like half my clients were my personal training clients, half the clients were there for pain relief. And then I went to this angelic healer, and it was weird. It was all of a sudden it like shifted, man. And gosh, that was crazy. Kind of, she went off into this different language. I'll tell you kind of a crazy story. And she showed me this crazy tree made out of this aluminum that was around this giant rock or crystal or something. She's like, this is for, you know, good fortune, and I'll put that in there for the end of the story. But I'm like, okay, and I still have the card she wrote on, like something about being able to see who people are and cut through the electromagnetic energy, tissue or whatever. And I was like, okay. And she's telling me how to bring angels in. I was like, yeah, okay, lady. So I didn't know anything about angels. I mean, I never paid attention in church growing up. Luckily, holy shit, that's another topic, the Catholic Church. But anyway, so I remember going back to my office, and I get out of my Denali at the time, and there's like white feathers everywhere. I'm like, all right, this is kind of weird. I'm like looking for pigeons, and this is weird. And there's like feathers on the way to the door. So I'm like, what the hell's going on with, birds around here? It's weird. And I had Chloe, my client, with cerebral palsy. And it's crazy, man. I'm calling them in, and I'm like, okay, whatever. And then all of a sudden, like, my body temperature goes up. Like, I got no pain in my blistered hands. I'm like, all right, this is weird. And all of a sudden, I look down at Chloe, and I'm ripping this, beautiful little 8-year-old fascial tissue apart. And she's smiling and looking over my left shoulder. And then I look at her brother, who's like, I think like 6 months, 7 months old, maybe with his mom. And he's like looking over my shoulder, and I'm like looking down at him. And then I'm walking around the table. And that feeling you get a goosebumps in your body, right? I mean, my hair was up everywhere, and it was just like, whoa, you just got this energy coming through. You're like, all right, well, this is weird, and I was just trying to do whatever I could to, like, my goal was to talk to that child. I just wanted her to I wanted to heal her, and it might be a far-fetched goal, or it might be ridiculous, but you hear what Jesus was capable of and all that. And some of these energy workers, who can literally, project Christ consciousness and channel that. You know what I mean? You're like, all right, then it starts becoming like, how the hell do I do that? Which is like impossible almost. But, people talk about enlightenment, blah, blah, blah. And there are some insane master healers, especially when you spend some time with these Indians and you see people shift overnight. So then I was like, okay, well, what if I do all this, and the bodybuilding and the hand strength and, being an Iron Man and continuing lifting weights, more so for my career, like everything I do was kind of to help people improve. But anyway, with Chloe, man, it was nuts. They left, and I hear these bird wings, and I'm like looking around for the friggin' bird in the rafters or something. And I see this feather all of a sudden on the floor, and I'm meticulously clean. That was when I had my own private training center. I posted that picture today. Truest Potential is dope. And I went back to the table, and there was a feather on the table. I'm like, what in the hell? So I'm beating up pillows, seeing if a feather will come out, still like naive to whatever. I get in my Tahoe, the feathers are all still there, super trippy. And I drive up towards my house up in, it was on South Mountain. And, they have 94.9 as a rock station and 96.3. So I bounce from one to the other. And it stops on 95.5, which I've never heard of. And this commercial says, to learn more about angels, go to prophecy.com, and goes back to static. And I was like, all right, I'm like tripping. And I think at the time I had some concealed weapons. So like, I like grab one close to me, like I'm going to be shooting angels and shit, like, I'm like, all right, shit's trippy. Like, come on, how does this, so many different inconsistencies, and I wasn't on any drugs, you know what I mean? I'm like, this is weird. You're just seeing these signs, and you see certain numbers and different things, and then you start, all right, someone's trying to communicate me, and like, shit, this is crazy. So I back in my garage, and I go to prophecy.com, and 8 ways to know an angel's with you, and like the hair in my whole body, and I just burst into tears. I was like, what is happening? So I go down to the shop like a week later. It was like eating at me, like, go back there, go back there, go back there. And I didn't want to buy this damn tree. It was expensive as hell, but it was cool looking, so whatever. So I went down and like, oh no, we sold that. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, well then why am I here? Something's been telling me to come here. So I go over to the corner and I'm like, oh my gosh. And I'm looking at the swords in my arms and I'm looking up at this dude with wings with the sword. And I was like, what the hell is that? So I'm like, that kind of looks like me, like thinking, I try to do everything I can to emotionally, spiritually, physically change my clients' lives. Sometimes I'll just say something in return and all of a sudden it shifts their thinking in a way that bing, they pop out of a dark place, because they've been suffering because their arm went from 23 inches to 18 inches because of a nerve impingement and they're beating up on themselves. And I'm like, so it's just interesting. But anyway, I carry it up front and the woman's like, oh, Archangel Michael. And all of a sudden, like, again, the hair in my body. So it's a trip, man. So every time I talk to a healer and they're like, oh, Archangel Michael. And, he's communicating with me. I'm like, okay, all right, cool. It's interesting, some of the people I've come across with gifts, bro. But when you see immediate shifts in your life and different things, it's like, whoa, how the hell did I get here? And then you start tracking different things. But it's like I'm living in a movie. You know how it is.
Yeah, I've watched some of the movie unfold, and it's been pretty interesting. So, at what point do you start developing this technique? Like, I guess what I'm thinking about is because I went to massage school, and like you learn all the different methods, and you learn all this, you learn all the different techniques, and it's like, at what point do you start going and start using your elbow and doing what you do? Because nobody does what you do.
I started right around that time when I started working with Chloe. I'm like, I need to figure out how the heck to get this tissue to release without hurting this child. So it was more like being in the trenches, little by little by little. Uh, I almost want to say it was shown to me, but with the crazy amount of hours I did, like therapists didn't believe the hours I was doing, and I was kind of silly. I didn't think anything about hurting my body. Like I grew up with a work ethic that killed most people. That's just what we did in Pennsylvania, like work sun up to sundown. So my passion to really fix my clients um, is what really kind of started to mesh with my fingertips, being able to peel that tissue apart in a manner that I could kind of manipulate that fascial layer and really create a lot of releases, especially in the cervical, neck, and the jaws and feet, different sensitive areas, And the elbow technique, man, it's interesting. As far back as I can think, I always had it. And one of my healers was looking at me. She's like, wow, she's watching me work. I had this guy show up that hadn't been working for a month. He's like pulling his leg in, walking up my sidewalk to see me on like New Year's. God, must have been like 2007, 8. I don't even know. And I'm looking out the door. She called me in an emergency, and I've been doing theta healing with her. Just had crazy experiences, uh, communicating with my Nana and coming to peace with her death, and like a ton of healing work. And it really opened my eyes to like, okay, so I'm this sensitive for a specific reason. What the hell gifts? How can I, you know, continue doing everything I can almost to improve not only myself but my work and my gifts? And then little by little, I'd start obviously working on more bodybuilders, and I had to figure out a way to get that tissue to release, almost like popping a blister, so they wouldn't lock up and flex the tissue on me, and almost they can almost relax. And it's funny when they're like, you can push deeper. I'm like, well, you mean, do you want to feel pain? They're like, well, I mean, that's what you're telling me. I mean, I can create more pain if you want, but I don't need to, because you're taking that tension across the surface of the body in a certain way. So I think that's around the time that I started smoking a little bit. So I just go into like a trance for 12 hours a day on clients with my eyes closed, to where I was just literally feeling the fascial lines and, giving it everything I have, the gas pedal, And it's funny, man, when you take a month or two off and you go work on clients, you're like, damn, this is what I do for a living. You know what I mean? But I was like, because it's so laborious and intensive, but it's cool, man. I meet some really rad people. I've been fortunate for that. And like, like Everlast, he's like a client of mine, and he was scheduled to have a disc replacement surgery. After his second treatment, he texts me, he's like, hey, I canceled my surgery. When do you want to see me again? And then I'm laughing. And he's such a rad guy and so respectful, obviously, in the music business, listening to his music. Now you're like, shit, now I'm hanging out with him. And it's just cool. It's just really neat being able to assist people out of pain. And you just look at people and you're like, external rotation, internal rotation. God, I can help you get out of pain. You must be in pain in your knee. You can just see patterns. And I'm so empathic, I can typically read people pretty well. And that's what the shaman master, they call him the white page. He's like the only white page and the Huni Queen said. He's like, I can look in people's eyes and I can watch them walk and I can read them. He's like, same thing you can do. And I started laughing. And it was so dope because during the ceremony, I was helping him up onto the wooden bench, which is like 2 feet or whatever, or 1.5 feet, pretty kind of tall. And everyone else was shocked that he was even letting me touch him or help him. And he's like, he's close to a doctor and a healer. Leave him alone. And they're like, what? Like, he never smiles, and we're like smiling, and I'm like joking with him, and he's like, you could be a Huni Queen guardian, and Marie's like, whoa. So it's being out in the forest, it's interesting. I'm really excited, and I put my hand on Maria after ceremony. She's like, oh, do you feel your hands? And I'm like, yeah. She's like, they're like microwaves. So really trying to implement that energy to expand that fascia work. It's just not about dragging knuckles and taking scraping tools. I respect that. I mean, I have a set. I work on myself or let Maria beat the crap out of me with them, and I might implement them in my work here and there for people like, especially bodybuilders that expect miracles and have like 20 hours worth of tissue to get through. But it's been real interesting learning kind of around the world what these different people do, even sound healing instruments and sound bowls. And I always try to implement, I mean, I sage before my clients come in. I'm cleaning myself in multiple manners, even spiritually. And the music and the hertz, even the water, the Kangen water I give them, like, everything's a specific process, and even the vibrator machine when I had that for lymphatics. And
I remember that, yeah.
yeah, blessing them, calling in angels, locking them and realigning them and cutting cords spiritually, emotionally. And, some people are crying, and it's rad. I don't know. I just always, it's interesting. It just kind of happened, I want to say, almost, where someone would mail me, hey, can I mail you some sage? I'm like, okay, like Red Dragon sage. I've never seen it anywhere. I've still got some. And then later on, you find what it does, and you're like, oh, crazy, So,
Were you able to share your hands and what you do with the people of these tribes?
What's cool? The white page, Zhao, he's gonna let me work with him. He said I wanted to sit with you first, and people couldn't believe he was letting me help him. And I set his bed up, carried it back for him. Just crazy respect, man. It's like chilling with Michael Jordan. But these people have gifts, and they've been on such strict diets, like they can just see and understand things. Someone that you might be dealing with for 10 years, and just boom, these ceremonies help people really create massive shifts. And I've had so many people from my small town of Honesdale reach out, worried about their nephew or their son or their daughter going through shit. It's just like, man, it's kind of cool because, the Lakota tribe and Yawanawa retreats coming up, and I'm bummed this next week in the Yawanawa I have a couple of ceremonies, but I'm quarantining and resting up to be able to come up there. and basically do the same thing and whatever before I could start working. So uh, it's something that I think is so necessary, just a perspective. And for those who've never necessarily done ayahuasca, it allows you to really not only get rid of the depression, the PTSD, forgive yourself, you know what I mean? And sometimes you just have things you need to remove and purge, spiritually, emotionally, especially, I could only imagine. I got so much respect for soldiers, for police officers. I couldn't do that. You know what I mean? I couldn't see that on a daily basis. Oh my gosh. You know, I was laughing yesterday. I'm like, man, I got to limit my time online. It's just like, wow, it's so hard to observe things without absorbing that shitty energy.
Yeah.
Trying to remain so high energy all the time. Like, wow, in today's world, man, to be able to live without addictions, food addictions, like, holy smokes, man. I think the only thing they sell down here that I've seen from up there are Doritos, but the ingredients are totally different.
Really?
Oh my gosh.
That's interesting.
It's like, man, it's crazy. Like, why do they, why can't you roll a natural organic tobacco cigarette? Why do you got to put 200 chemicals in it? Like, it's crazy how we've gotten so far away from what used to be very sacred if done properly, So
Well,
it's so wild learning from these indigenous tribes and hearing the history and following super strict diets, not consuming cheeses for a while and different things, how your mind just starts to completely shift, especially if you've been living in darkness. Because I had a couple of we call it dark night of the soul. I had a couple of super dark months, even down here, living in paradise with a beautiful woman who hasn't let me cook for myself in 6 months. It's crazy. And I'm living in paradise, but it doesn't mean I didn't, face my own shadows and have to come to terms and letting go of certain things. You know what I mean? And especially because it wasn't even against our control with the pandemic and the bullshit. But yeah, Dr. Felipe Bandera from the Arca Church has some incredible YouTube videos. I've been doing his 5-month holotherapy class, which is like the complete history of psychotherapy with Freud and all the plant medicines, like from every single.
what's his name?
Dr. Felipe, Phillipe, Benderia, and I believe De Mello is in between. I think Felipe De Mello Bandera. But I'm taking his, like I said, his holotherapy course is 5 months, and it's just mind blowing. He talks about mapping and client mapping. So I'm just trying to get to the bottom of everything and continue upping my skill set. I've been fortunate to be able to do that down here, sit with these tribes, so I can just, try to add it to what I'm already doing for my clients with body work to really get down to, healing. So it's been kind of interesting. We're always trying to improve everywhere we can.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you've had such an interesting life experiences,
Yeah.
and I guess
too. You know what I mean?
What's
like,
that?
And I don't mean to, but I look back like, what the hell? You know what I mean? Like how many lives I've lived and how many places I've lived in between Hollywood and Salt Lake City, and you just kind of get that sign to keep moving. And that's why I'm like, man, looking at everything that's happened up there, and I totally miss it, and being able to just go up the street to Target, you know what I mean, and go to Home Depot, like, whoa, totally different vibe, even though it's so affordable here. But I definitely miss America. I miss my red lines. I'm going to try not to have a stroke. Just have like a at a time. Because,
I think every session that I did with you, you had a red line.
That means we got like 6 hours of work done in 3. Holy crap.
So
crap out of myself.
What are some of the biggest takeaways based on all these? I mean, you had an incredible amount of experience. What are some of the things that you learned?
Man, I tell you what, energy. not being affected by other people's energy is difficult. When you're sitting there, and especially during some of those mushroom ceremonies where you can see friggin' energy, you can feel energy, and you realize you don't have to be a part of it. You know what I mean? So not taking things personally almost. Like, or if someone says some fucked up shit, you see the fact like, wow, they're hurting inside to say something like that. Like, AKA fucking asshole. You know what I mean? Like, um, you just realize how many people are in pain that are either too prideful to do something about it, or, whatever from freaking childhood that's really affected their relationships as they get older, even self-sabotaging things that's just not necessary. So figuring yourself out and figuring out your patterns and releasing them. I shared that meme about how many ancestors we had to have to be here. It's like, what, 4,000 grandparents or whatever to be alive today. Like, whoa, like they say, even their struggles are embedded in their DNA. And that's what this shaman said a lot of the tobacco cleansing does. I'm like, damn it, am I really forcing myself to vomit? Fuck. Like drinking tobacco. Are you kidding me? But I'm like, hell with it. Let's do it. So what it does for you and the detoxification effects is like, can't get cold or flu. Like, all right, throw a shock, drink 12 water and vomit in a stream. You're like, am I really doing this? Like it gets you out of your own way and gets rid of your own ego. And I've been fortunate to kind of been living here in the beach, which isn't reality for most people. It's kind of ridiculous. I think like, how, it's just like I'm
How
living.
the fuck did I get here?
Yeah. I'm like, but it's funny because I have a storage unit and I've got a cell phone. I'm like, wow, dude, not having any bills is pretty awesome. You're like, huh, shit, So trying to figure out, man, do I get rid of my Tahoe? Do I keep the damn thing? Am I going to live up there? I don't even know, man. I mean, I totally miss LA, but man, people lost their damn minds. And once
Yeah.
you've seen riots, you're like, yeah, I want to live in the eye of that tornado that might hit every 4 years, like, huh, the beach house just got blown apart. Let's move back. Like, I don't know. I just don't know. It's funny. Joe Rogan left, and, I love visiting New York, but I'm curious to see what Times Square area is like.
Oh yeah, it's dead. I'm
Oh,
from New
man.
York. Yeah, I got family up there. It's just
Yeah.
they say it's eerie.
So sad, dude. Like, what happened to all these people, Like, so I've got some decisions to make, and, hopefully maybe live between both places or whatever.
Florida.
It's so freaking beautiful here. It's crazy. I don't speak a lick of Portuguese. I need to learn, but Maria speaks like 4 languages, so I'm kind of spoiled like that. So I'm like the mute here. It's kind of awesome.
You
So
totally
it's,
blend in though.
oh my God, it's a ride. I'm like, you think people think I'm a gringo? She's like, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes.
I was laughing my ass off. She told me I'm exotic here. And in a hilarious way, I finally felt, I'm like, all right.
I'm
Like, you're
exotic.
exotic, tasty redhead. I'm like, but it's real wild, man. They shut the street down yesterday, and thousands of people were out. Everyone's wearing masks, and they had street vendors out on the beach. And these people are super happy, and their traditions are pretty badass. I mean, gosh, the first night we got up to that retreat, Maria is definitely afraid of frogs for whatever reason. And I had her flashlight, and I'm like looking around the banister, and I didn't see him sitting on the banister. And she like boom beelines it backwards. She doesn't freak out. She just exited like hyper speed, and I'm like, what is she doing? She's like, honey, do you see the frog? And I didn't think. And it's this crazy looking alien looking orange frog, which I later found out I posted like most poisonous frog in the world or whatever. And you're like, hey, little guy, and they're just like checking you out, seeing who's in their house. It's just, man, nature here is wild. All of a sudden you see waterfalls. So we sat in the sauna and then rinsed off in the waterfall, and we put tobacco over us to get ready for the ceremony. The one day we put eucalyptus, and they have different purposes, and before you drink the sacred medicine. And man, I tell you, I like I said, I was sitting there like sweating in the 40-degree temperatures or whatever, and undressing. Maria was like, "What the hell is going on?" I'm like, "I'm gonna freeze my ass off, and if I get soaked and can't get dry, and we're here for another 6 hours, you know." So something was coming out of my body, and sometimes you'll see different visions and talk to ancestors, or whatever comes up for you, whether it's this life or previous lives, and you come to peace, and then you realize why these people are so happy and they're so simple, and that's way different than we live in America. But I'm trying to figure out how to maintain this level of like calm and chill, especially what the hell I'm going to experience in LA, and you know Salt Lake and Orlando or whatever when I come up. It's going to be interesting. People seem so intense and hateful now
Oh
more than
yeah, yeah.
something else.
A lot of panic, a lot of unrest, and I'm waiting for this election cycle to be over too, man. Like I want to. I'm a cop, so like I totally get it.
Oh
Like
yeah,
it's
that's right, man. Appreciate your
yeah.
service.
Oh, no
Much.
worries, man. I appreciate it. But yeah,
Yeah, you're
it's
doing. Aren't you doing therapy and training and like
I, w-
that
I,
too?
w- I was down in Florida when I moved there, and I did that
Yeah.
until 2019, and then ended up shutting everything down, and then I ended up getting a job, and then moved up to DC with my wife. My wife was in the military.
Oh, congratulations. That's wonderful, man. Good for you.
Yeah, I
Yeah, and
appreciate it.
hopefully you can start developing programs for these guys, especially the. It's interesting. When I joined Ski Patrol after I had my first like one of my first like major stressful events, I took like a Rahe DOMS something or other. I believe it was like a mass casualty stress test, and it has certain numerical things that you go through within previous 2 years of your life, whatever, and it has different numbers and scores. And 0 to 100 is like low stress. 100 to 200 is like moderate. 300 or above is like you can't have normal relationships. You're all fucked up. You can't eat right. Traumas, right? So I remember getting like a 985, and I was like, triple that bitch. I'm like, I'm
Beat that.
I'm still alive. You know what I mean? And
Give me
then you
another
look
red
back.
line.
Oh my God! And then you look. Yeah, luckily I wasn't even drinking them back when I got that one. But then you just look at certain things and you realize like you don't have to save everyone. And just switching your mindset, and that's what's been most fun to kind of almost learn and continue not only your personal healing, but I bring it all back to my clients. So learning from these masters and taking these classes and seeing what these shamans are doing, not only for my own ability to, heal clients and continue extending my career and my health, obviously with all the detoxification benefits and everything. I mean, hell, man, I wouldn't go to a hospital if I had cancer. I'd jump in the next freaking ceremony. You know what I mean? And start pounding shots of ayahuasca. You know what I mean? I mean, it's just different imbalances in the body we create, and a lot of them are tied to our emotions. I mean, but yeah, man. Hopefully, there's a lot of the money that they're hopefully pouring back into the police will be for mental health. Holy crap! I don't even know
Yeah.
how you guys do what you do each day. Like literally babysitting assholes. It's crazy. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I think everyone, especially in Congress, needs a couple shots of ayahuasca. We'd have a whole different scenario.
I love it. That's awesome.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah,
listen, man. I appreciate you coming on. It was awesome talking. I like to talk
yeah.
to you whenever we can. If you want to do it again,
No,
let's do
let's
it
do.
again.
I would love to any topic, and I've got some great stories. And yeah, like you said, it's like, how the fuck did I get here? But then I look at all the bills I cut, and you're like, wow, paying 10 grand a month just to live in a city. You're like, huh, that doesn't really make sense. You know what I mean? And you look at the last decade of your life. So I'm kind of in that transition too, aside from, doing one-on-one training and helping other therapists develop. and continuing to see clients, it's like, now you're looking at real estate agents like driving around Ferraris, and you're looking at your fingers, you're like, shit, you know what I mean? But I'm so passionate about healing. It's just like, all right, let's see what I'm capable of. And like I said, I've limited myself now to 5 hours a day, 6 hours a day, which a lot of times is only one or two clients, so I'm smarter that way. But yeah, man, always looking to improve any way I can.
I love it, man. I love it. I've been following you for
Yeah.
a while. I love your story. I love your social media.
No, thank you. And like I
Especially,
said, man, we have a handful of openings left for the January 30th through February 6th, Yawanawa tribe and Lakota tribe. There's like 10 leaders. These guys are like rock stars, man. It's like they play music for 10 hours straight. It's something else. And then, especially if people have been through traumas, a lot of people are just like stuck in their life. A lot of people can't even stop smoking. Like, how are you going to stop when you have the same exact habit and pattern every day? You know what I mean? And it was even hard to give up those damn red lines. It was like $5 a pop, man. And
yeah, they are.
7-Eleven was right up the street. And you're like, I just want to taste that crack that tastes like Skittles, and you just start getting in habits that you can't get out of. So it's cool to get in nature, eat organic food. And even when clients used to drive to see me in Pennsylvania from Brooklyn, they'd show up like, dude, this is really relaxing out here. You know what I mean? And they had like a selfie with a horse and stuff. It was like hilarious. You're like, oh my God, yeah, you get to Brooklyn and you're like, this is what you're, used to. Whoa. So especially for people in police and people in law enforcement and fire, I mean, man, to be able to come to that emotional peace and kind of release all the burden and all the stuff you've been hanging on to for whatever prideful or whatever other reason, man, a week or a weekend is life changing. But yeah, anyone can get a hold of me if they have interest, or if you're interested in coming. It's super affordable, man. The whole like 7-day retreat's like $1,800. It's freaking bananas for such an experience and so much healing. And it's wild to be out in nature, just so beautiful. I mean, I tell you, the first time I visited Christ the Redeemer, I got emotional and was not expecting that. It just kind of hit you. You're like, whoa, you just feel this energy and you're looking up and you're like, whoa, this is kind of a trip. It's a real interesting energy down here, real special. So I'm super fortunate I've been able to be here, especially up there this year with it. The atmosphere being so able to cut it with a knife.
Yeah, it's probably the best possible recourse to go down there and get the experiences that you have, make
Oh
some
my
sort of
God.
positive change in your life.
Oh my God. I tell you what, I'm like laughing, I was drinking like, I don't even know, 10 cups of coffee a day. Like, why am I drinking coffee all day? You know what I mean? Just because the damn Brazilian coffee is so good. So even it's like, have to give yourself a gut check, get back to alkaline water or whatever. And so, yeah, man, you really have to do your work to, and especially in America, to stay balanced. It's easy here. Most of the shit's healthy, but oh my God, I'm telling these kids yesterday, I'm like, you guys in America, imagine a football field with candy. And you're like, that's what Walmart is. You're like, what the hell? Wow. Everything we drink with the sodas and everything, it's like, damn. So, let alone alcohol and everything, it's pretty interesting. So yeah, I'm hoping to get even in the forest for a handful of days once they reopen. And Arca Church isn't going right now with the pandemic or whatever, but some of these churches, which include the plant medicine, I tell you, man, it's just a whole nother level of like an expansion of consciousness and in inner healing. You know what I mean? So it's pretty mind blowing, but it does take a little bit of bravery, and there are nights where you're just like, man, I died tonight a couple times. You're just like, you were just literally letting go and surrendering. Where most people can never freaking make themselves that vulnerable, right? But you just do, and by morning you wake up and you're like, Man, that tree over there is fucking awesome. You know what I mean? Like resetting yourself and watching a butterfly fly around, you know, and like I think it's so necessary because most people don't realize like they're under constant stress and a lot of it's not even their own.
Right.
Yeah, so but yeah, man, let's talk whenever you want. I'd love it.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. This was super enjoyable. You're a rad
Yeah.
dude, man. I love it.
No, you're welcome, man. It's just been, like I said, I'm so grateful and so thankful. I was talking to a friend we met at the retreat, and his kids are like, "So, who have you met?" You know, and I'm laughing, and they're like 7 and 10, and I'm like, "Well, do you know who Ice T is?" And they listen to gangster rap. These kids are they're from England, and so he's got this freaking badass UK. You know, he's got the mustache, and I met him at the ceremony. Just a badass friend of mine, where we just were over at Itaroy, and like, well, I met Ice T, and I met Busta Rhymes, and they're like, whoa, showing them, you know, this American or whatever. So it's been such a wild ride, and I just kind of laugh and shake my head, you know, working with Tony Robbins and like having a filet mignon in this private jet. You're like, what the fuck?
That's
You know what I mean?
incredible.
But it's kind of like, oh, dude, he moved like this giant door out of the way on the floor of his house and jumped in. I was like, what the hell? It's like a slide to his basement, like $158 million, 14,000 square foot basement. It's just game rooms and simulators of any car in the world. Like, it's just crazy, man. And hyperbaric chamber in his garage, and you're just like, I didn't want to see any of this. You know what I mean? But you know, you meet your idol and you're able to offer, you know, my healing and take people out of pain. It's it's hard not to want to help everyone when you can, especially people that you respect. And you know, like I said, some of my most favorite situations were the children I've worked with, and people that obviously have given up hope, and God, some of them admitted to me later they were ready to take their lives and set the date. You know, we're giggling and laughing and having emotional releases when they left because they didn't feel pain. They were just start laughing hysterically, you know, and you're like, oh my gosh, in different scenarios where you're able to help people out of. Uh, and again, for myself, the hard thing is not taking that on personally and just everyone has a process. You know what I mean? And obviously, I try to fix people in one session, which most people laugh at me and deem impossible. But I've done it sometimes where it's like, that wasn't me. I was just here to do that. You know what I mean? Holy crap, or whatever. And so yeah, man, I appreciate it. I look at my life and I'm like, God, people must think I'm fucking crazy. I'm like, I don't care, whatever. They do the same shit for 40 years and that bores the shit out of me.
Yeah, it's inspiring. I'm inspired.
Well, I tell you, that's why one of my friends up there was from another country. He's like, it takes a lot of bravery for another man to move countries. And I'm like, well, I didn't realize, like, holy shit, what did I get myself into, you know? But I've been so fortunate because Maria is such an incredible human being. And dude, I've never been with a woman like where all of a sudden, bam, you see each other every day for 6 months. And I didn't feel comfortable going to the store. Like I can't speak Portuguese. So, and obviously we were in lockdown for so long anyway, but it's been a beautiful experience, you know, and hopefully the borders will open back up so she can come up to America with me. She's never seen snow,
Oh
you
wow.
know. Yeah, and that's why I'm like, so summer's coming here, and it's opposite time of season from up there, and I'm like, I'm gonna sweat my ass off. I'm like, might need to be in Utah for a couple months this winter. Like, we'll figure that out, babe. You know, but so yeah, man, I'm gonna figure out what I'm gonna do because and property here is so inexpensive. Like, oh my goodness, like obviously it's a third world country or whatever, but it's so beautiful, and that's why I'm building partnerships with these retreat centers now for a lot of people who've been suffering from any type of stress or addiction or suicidal thoughts, any of that stuff. I mean, these are psychologists that are interviewing you before you're even considered to sit in ceremony, and these guardians who've been doing it for so many years that are helping you process, childhood traumas, different shit that you buried, you didn't even realize, but it's been affecting you. it's rather beautiful, and that's why I want to offer my tissue work and take people out of pain. And then all of a sudden, you're in the mountains detoxing literally for days among friends, and doing these insane like rock shows with medicine, and just taking time out of your life to allow yourself a reset and be like, okay, when I get back home, how do I want to live? And instead of getting up and like running and grabbing smokes or grabbing some weed and rolling a blunt and then having a pot of coffee, like, what can I do healthier? You know what I mean? Get up, have breakfast, because you had to reset your stomach. Where, tell you, man, after I came back from this retreat, all of a sudden, like, my appetite came back. Or I was just finally, like, finally. So I must have had some type of parasite or bullshit, or whatever, and it just, the stories that you hear about ayahuasca is just remarkable, as far as healing and different things that people have been through. There's a lot of documentaries your viewers can look at on Netflix and Gaia TV that it's to me, that's the only way to come to peace with yourself. So you don't need to rely on any substance or anger, where, you really just need a hug from your wife, but you don't know how to emotionally communicate that because of trauma you've been through or whatever it might be. It's just interesting, the conversations I've had with people on different things. But yeah, improving your quality of life and or having like massive appreciation for the life you already live. It's man, I tell you, I think it's necessary, and that's why these tribes started sharing it with us the last 5 or 10 years, and that's why it's becoming so popular. It's like I said, my doctor had said that he was seeing clients for 30 years, and after one Bufo ceremony, they didn't need to see him anymore. Like what? It's amazing. So the goal in life is obviously not to have to rely on anything. And hey, whatever, you want your damn cup of coffee and your cookie every day, whatever. I'm not gonna judge you. But when things just become a problem for people and they just don't know how to handle certain situations, and then especially now you throw in the pandemic on top of it, it's like, how can you not be depressed? You know what I mean? Like, congratulations if you're happy. Holy shit. Because they're making it so difficult for us to be happy. So it's been like a beautiful like reset of your entire view, where you don't see hell anymore. You're just like, oh, cool, yeah, shit, I'm back in heaven. Hey, it's just your perspective. And a lot of times, another thing for your viewers with PTSD, what are you doing to heal that? You know what I mean? And it's not about pride. It's just like working out. When you can remain calm when someone else is losing their shit, you're a superhero.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? And that's the goal, especially for law enforcement and anyone who's under severe stress all day. It's like you're like friggin' Jedis. I laugh at these basketball players and all these idiots. And I'm not going to get political, but it's like, do their job with them for a day. I dare you. You know what I mean? Before you take a knee, do their damn job. Like, holy smokes, so much respect. So yeah, man, offering alternative ways that you don't need to be addicted to pharmaceuticals and lose, or whatever, invest half your life in friggin' shit that's not working for you, and all of a sudden you can get out of pain physically, seeing me, and now change your life in a retreat or a weekend with ayahuasca and sacred plants down here in Brazil. It's like being able to be a gateway for people. So it'll be kind of interesting. So many people are like, I want in on that. I'm like, okay, well, let's really see. But I tell you, the experience has just been remarkable, and the changes and the amount of energy you all of a sudden have. It's like, whoa, what the hell is it hanging on to? It's just like really interesting, like just that reset to your central nervous system, sometimes your digestion. It's wild. Like I said, a lot of times, like you said before, you kind of born again because you had so many ego deaths. You know what I mean? And in the middle of the night, you just let go of things you were hanging on to. Sometimes you didn't even realize you were. So it's remarkable, and what it does. I think now with one of the with studying with Philip, that you learn about what the benefits of it. And it's such a sacred plant. It's remarkable. and it makes sense that they do it in church. That's what all these priests over the years were doing to be able to channel and whatever enlightenment. They were taking this stuff, but not letting anyone else. It's like, whoa. So we won't even get into them trying to steal it. But there even is a Santa Daime church here where it's basically Aya, but they worship Jesus. So interesting.
It is
So
interesting.
imagine like taking a shot of Aya and getting your DMT hit, but being in church, right? All of a sudden, like your crown chakra, you're literally connected to your higher self, like tapping into a spirituality and a knowing where, you know, it's just personally something I feel that like you don't have a choice. Like it's like going to a Tony Robbins Unleash the Fire Within concert. Like if you get the chance, you just should. You know what I mean? It's like, but this is a whole different level. It's like self introspection and self healing. And it's interesting with Aya. Sometimes she removes different people from your life, or it just almost speeds things up and gets things out of the way. So, and that's why you've seen me shift and change, and all of a sudden, like I'm here, I'm here, I'm here, I'm here. It's just so interesting in my career. You know, I every time I lost something, you know, or had a setback, like I got even more motivated. You know, and next thing you know, I trademarked myself, and you know, back to your question about with my technique, I trademarked myself probably 10 years ago, and started using that, you know, surgery without the knife. And
Love it.
I went real quick. I'll tell you the last story. I went to Arnold Classic and I met Victor Martinez, and he had just broken his tricep from arm wrestling and had a plate put in. So I'm like, I'm going to fix you, dude. So I'm working on his hotel room. I had like $1,300 left in my name. My chiropractor's looking at me and he's on the phone with me. He's like, yo, I want to introduce you to Buster Rhymes. And I was like, what the? He's like, when's the last time someone's going to introduce me to a rapper? You know, this kid from Honesdale, Sticks, Pennsylvania, you know, and you meet someone you idolize in the bodybuilding world too. You're like, this is cool. So I'm looking at him. I paid like $1,250 to get there. I'm like, hell with it. Like I was dead ass broke. My ex was even working for the airlines, but she didn't think there'd be any flights. I said, fucking, I booked one and made it. And next thing you know, we're up flexing for Steve Weinberg. And he looks at me and John De La Rosa and all those people. And they're like, hey, he's like, his left one is bigger and more striated than his healthy one. And everyone looks over at me and I'm like, you know, and that's when I asked them, what's this worth? And, you know, I was charging $60-$70, whatever, like beating the hell out of myself in Salt Lake. And he's like, I think like 200-300, half an hour. And I'm like, what? You know, and then obviously meeting these doctors in Beverly Hills. And I'm like sitting there, I just paid off my damn, 10 grand to move into a house and three-year lease in Utah. I had my own training center. And the shaman's like, I see you moving to LA in 6 months. I'm like, girl, you are friggin' out of your mind. 3 months later, I'm living in Hollywood, dude. And like, but it's who I've met along the way. And it's just been an interesting journey, just, you know, trying to expand the technique and bring it back to clients. I just look at it. I'm just like, all right, you know, next adventure. So yeah, we'll see, man. Hopefully I'll either be living in both or living up there, coming here. I'm not even sure yet, but we'll see what happens, man. But yeah, bro, I so appreciate the opportunity to bullshit with you.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Your energy is incredible, dude. I love it.
Thank you, bro. Talk
Take
to you
care,
soon.
bro. Yeah, man.
You
Bye
too.
now.
Bye.
Like what you heard, don't forget to like and subscribe to the Veteran Entrepreneur Podcast brought to you by .mildgear.com.